And we're live. All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Muckin N Grindin tonight. Got a special guest, Mr. Ryan Mill, the in-house voice of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Well, thanks for joining me tonight. It's
Thanks greatly appreciated.
Yeah, it's definitely different for me. I'm not much of the interview type, but we're going to have some fun. We'll ask some dumb questions. And
those are the other ones I like to answer, so that works out perfectly.
They're the easy ones. Yeah. But first off, how's everything with you and with the quarantine actually being over and being still stuck in, kind of not being able to do much and, live?
Yeah, I work from home. So, I mean, even during non-COVID times, I'm still in the studio just doing my everyday job. The only slow part is that most of Los Angeles is shut down, and that's where most of my work comes from outside of Penguins stuff. So until they get theirs under control, we're going to be we'll be hurting for a little bit.
Yeah. We'll pigtail right off of that. You do a lot of narration and like voiceover work. I'm assuming that's technically what it's called for different Discovery Channel shows.
Yeah, we've got a couple of shows they're on Discovery and History, Smithsonian Channel, Science Channel.
Yeah, because I know I'm a fan of one of them. Fast and Loud was one of the ones I was a fan of.
Sure.
Hear you on there, but still, there's nothing like hearing you in I still call it console. Sorry, but it's PPG
I
Arena.
Can't. You're allowed to make that mistake. I am not. That is not a mistake I can make.
I like calling it the arena.
Sure,
but I still get hooked on console every once in a while. But calling the goal calls down at PPG Paints Arena.
Yep.
It's amazing. There's nothing like it when the Pens score a goal. You know who's coming on. But what are one of your favorite moments from PPG Paints Arena that you can elaborate on?
Well, I will go back to Consol days. When Sid came back from being out for, what was it, almost 15 months or something ridiculous. That game, the energy in that building was like nothing I've experienced before. But I should say, in a work capacity, I was there when Mario came back as a fan. But this was something surreal. Like it takes a lot for me to get chills. I've seen a lot. This is my 11th season, but that game, boy. It just was electric. Just even before the game started, all the signs and people chanting, it was pretty special.
Yeah, it definitely was a special game. And then coming out, I think he had a goal and an assist that game.
Goal and assist, correct.
Against the Islanders, correct?
I think it was.
I'm pretty sure. I think.
Yeah, that sounds right.
But yeah, I elaborate on you've been with the Pens for 11 seasons. How did you come about getting the gig with the Pens?
I still play in lesser Corona times. I still play old man hockey. And it was right after they won the cup in 2009. I got an email from a guy that I play hockey with, and he said, "Hey, I saw online on a blog site or something that the Penguins were looking for a secondary public address announcer." He said, "Is that something you'd be interested in?" He said, because now I had been in radio up until 2008. The radio station used to be B94. Before that, K-Rock. I ran those stations as the program director. I was a jock. I was imaging director. But in 2008, I got downsized along with a bunch of people, and radio began its decline. And not because I was gone. Just maybe. But just people were being let go at a pretty rapid pace at that point. So I had to figure out what I wanted to do. And they were going to pay me not to work for a while because I had a non-compete. So it wasn't like I could go over to DVE or to the X or something. And it wasn't even that I wanted to. I knew I'd already built a studio in the house and I knew I wanted to be a voice actor. But this sounded like, okay, my favorite team ever. My dad was a writer for the Beaver County Times in the early 70s. And his beat was the Penguins. So, for the first couple of seasons, I guess that would have been like their third and fourth season. He was a beat writer and he just got handed that gig. So I was 2. Let's see, I was born in 1972. Yeah, so I was like 2. And so I grew up with the Penguins. Now, had this job become available for the Steelers or the Pirates, I don't think I would have even gone for it. But this was my team. In college, I supervised food service for it was called ARA at the time. Now it's Aramark.
Mhm.
So I was crawling all over that building for years. So I had heard John Barbaro. I could recite everything he ever did. So this opportunity came about where they were just taking online applications at NHL.com.
Oh wow, that's
So
awesome.
I sent an application in. I gave them a link to just my voice work, and I kind of forgot about it. So maybe that was like on a Wednesday or something like that, and maybe on Friday. This is the summer between winning the cup and then the start of the 9-10 season. I got an email that said, "Would you be willing to talk to us about auditioning?" I thought, awesome, yeah. So I ended up being invited to come down to an open audition. Well, that wasn't really open, the invited audition. And I don't know how many guys were auditioning, guys or women were auditioning that day. I just know it was August. It was in Mellon Arena, and it was about 1,000 degrees inside. I mean,
Mm.
the lights were out. There was no air conditioning on in the building, and and they took me really high up in the arena. But the scoreboard was very low,
Yeah.
almost like if you were ice level. Now, there wasn't ice, of course, but if you were standing where the ice would be, you could reach up and touch it without having to jump. That's how low the scoreboard was. So they took me upstairs and they said, and they had told me before, and prepare maybe goal calls or something. But that's not the job I was interviewing for. I was interviewing to be kind of John's assistant, and I would do kind of the promotional reads. So like commercials in game.
Yeah.
So, but they had me doing goal calls and a couple other different things. Like they threw the one thing they threw at me, and now they had just won the cup and they had beaten the Red Wings. So Justin Abdelkader was one of the goal calls I had to make for an opposing team. And so I said Abdelkader without butchering it. And they thought, okay, well, I guess this guy knows at least a little bit about hockey. And then it was a goal that I had to do. It was a goal from Crosby, or he scored it, but it was from Fleury and Letang in that order. So it was like first assist was Fleury. And I looked at them. I said, how would Fleury have gotten a first assist? Like what a pass. I mean, what the hell happened there? And they, that kind of, okay, I don't know if that was to trip me up or to see who knows what, but I did it. And they asked me some questions. So the first question that they asked me, and there is video of this somewhere but they asked me the question. They said, how many games have you been a public address announcer for? And I said, do you mean high school, college? Because I went to Pitt and I went to North Allegheny, all that time till now. And they said, yeah. And I said, well, geez, that's 0. And they're like, 0. I said, I've never done this before. I'm just a washed up radio guy, voice actor. This is my team. I'm just going to be giddy being able to tell people I did this audition. This is going to be great.
Yeah.
So I did the goal calls and everything else. And then they walked me down. But as they walked me down, we took a different route. And I could see, again, the arena was very dark, but I could see now on the other side of that scoreboard. And I could see white shirts and dark ties. And I said, what's going on over there? They having like a meeting and he said, no, they're listening. I said, to me, they were listening to me. And he said, yeah. And I said, who? And they started rattling off some higher ups that I was familiar with. But I had no idea. And he said, and I don't know, maybe Mario's over there too. Now,
maybe Mario, maybe.
So there are two guys, two sports figures in the history of sports that I just absolutely love. It was Willie Stargell, Mario Lemieux. That was it. That was the end all be all. They said that, and my knees was like, oh my gosh. So as we're walking down, the guy's radio who's escorting me down goes off and it says, like, the next guy is here. So, I've played enough sports in my life. I know how to get in people's head. So I when I got downstairs, I shook his hand. I said, hey, thanks for not telling me that Mario was, there listening, because that would have freaked me out. I wouldn't have been able to do it, knowing that the next guy was like right here over my shoulder. And so I did enough to get into his head that I know he didn't get the job. But a couple of days later, I got the call. They asked if I wanted to do it, and then they told me the news that John was sick, and I had no idea. Yeah. So they said that this job could start with you being the guy until maybe midway through the season if John can come back. And, you know, John had been there so long that they didn't even know what John did to prep for a game. He had just been doing it for 32 years or something. So, you know, he's not only is he the guy, he's the only one that knows. He's like the keys to the castle. So I said, did John leave anything? And they said, no, John's not, you know, he's not in good enough health that he could like even meet with you, but maybe, you know, halfway through the season. So my first real game, not a preseason game, my first real game was bringing the team out to the ice, the banner dropping, and the cup coming out to the ice. That was my first game. And in the entire time, it was raining, like torrential downpour outside. And I sat right at center ice in that building where John sat for years. And water was dripping on my head the entire time as I'm bringing the team out and everything else. And I was like, not only am I sweating through a suit, but I'm drenched from the outside as well. And if you could have told me after that game that I'd still be doing 11 seasons later, I'd be like, get out of here. I stink. I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. I still don't necessarily know what I'm doing, but having a blast.
It's still, after the Penguin comes on the Jumbotron and are you ready? And then that's you coming. Get on your feet and make it loud because Here we go.
Correct.
As soon as I hear that, me and my kids went to the Pens Boston game where we were down 3-0.
Yes.
And we were 2 rows behind Boston's bench, right where the players come out. My company was gracious enough to let us have the tickets. It was fantastic. My kids had never sat up that close. They were, it was amazing.
You could hear some things when you're that close.
Yes. Cool thing was Jake DeBrus tossed my daughter a puck, and
nice.
He actually flirted with my oldest one for a little bit, and I was like, they were winking and blowing kisses back and forth to each other. I'm like, guys.
All right.
Seriously.
Don't make me have to kill this guy.
Yeah. I want to take him, hit him with his own skate. Right. But it was funny because, like, you sit there, and as soon as you say, I have the video to prove it, as soon as you say, get on your feet and make it loud, she was high-fiving the guys coming out of the Boston, through the tunnel. As soon as you said that, boom, she's like, whoa! She starts screaming, totally turns her back. And the funny thing is Brad Marchand was one of the guys going up to high-five her, and she went, boom, turned her back right on him and started screaming for the Pens. And I was
left him hanging.
A
ball of hate left hanging. I like it.
and the best part was I was like, man, I raised my kids to hate Brad Marchand. I couldn't have done a better job. But a little story about that game, though, is it was a TV timeout. He's standing right there in front of us, and he's getting a drink of water, and it looked like I thought he was looking at me because my youngest was sitting next to me, and all of a sudden I feel the little elbow in the ribs. She's like, Dad, watch this, and she gives him the. And he starts laughing, nice. Waves at her, and skates away. And I was like, that's awesome. I was like, as much as I can't stand this little guy, he's
not afraid to play with the fans. That's good.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
But yeah,
she'll remember that forever.
Absolutely. And
this goes back to my I told you Willie Stargell and Mario were my favorites. Willie Stargell in 1979, I got to go to a game with my dad. So this is World Series year. Of course, they hadn't won it at this point. Mm-hmm. But, we are family days. I had my pillbox hat with the lines around it. And my mom had purchased from Joanne Fabrics or whatever some gold stars, and she put stars on my hat. Well, we went to the game, and my dad said, hey, let's go wait outside of the players' exit entrance after the game, right at the bottom of Three Rivers, and let's see if we can see some players. So I had a ball that I wanted Willie to sign that my dad legitimately 2 days ago just found. He's moving. He said, look what I found. Willie Stargell ball. So he said, why don't we go down and see if we can get an autograph? So we stand outside, and the players start to come out. Omar Marino and Kenta Colby and Phil Gardner, and all I want to see is Willie. Dave Parker comes through, and Willie comes out in he's in a fur coat, and it must be June. So he's, it's like 1,000 degrees. And he walks up, and there's a couple people there, not a lot, but a couple people, and he's signing stuff. And I give him the ball, and he starts to sign. And he says, hey, where'd you get those stars? And I was like, because now if anyone who's watching doesn't know, Willie only gave out the Stargell stars to the player who he deemed went above and beyond for that game. He gave 1 star a game, and Kent Colby had them all around his hat. I mean, like he just millions of them. So, and I've got like 4 haphazardly placed on my hat that my mom would put a stitch in. And he said, where'd you get those stars? Now I want to die because I know I'm 7 years old, and I know that I shouldn't have these stars. Because if he could see me hit a ball, he would be very disappointed. I was a soccer guy. And I said, my mom got it for me. And he said, oh. And he reached into his fur coat and he pulls out a little sheet of Stargell stars. And he put one right on my hat. And you could have knocked me over with a feather forever. And now to this day, I'm 48 years old. So this is 41 years later. No matter what sport I've ever played, I wear the number 8. Always. My kid wore it in soccer. It just, Willie was the man. I mean, he took that amount of time. What was it? Maybe 2 minutes of his life, changed mine forever. So when I started running radio stations and I had DJs that worked for us, Bubba, who's on Star, who was on B94 for years, one of the things I would try to implore them is like, take time. People are going to want to meet you. They never really thought that they were too big to meet people. They didn't think they were important enough. That's just kind of, they're just radio people. And I said, no, to them, you are important. Take time. And I would tell them my Willie Stargell story, and they would. I mean, everyone knows who Bubba is. It's just because he's been around forever. But he also takes the time. He's the consummate ambassador for radio, and he's a good guy. But I like to think that maybe that story helped him develop at least to the fact where he would take a couple seconds for people.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome, because like my wife listens to Bubba, every day, and you hear the same people every day. You start remembering all the little stories that they tell.
Absolutely.
And it's almost like they're part of your extended family because just about as much about them as their family does sometimes because some of them spill their guts and it just to keep it lighthearted and just to keep it from being too serious, right. And to have fun with it. And she always says that they always tell call us, hey, love you, when they're done and they hang up. Like we did out the family, love you, bye, and that's awesome, and that builds a better relationship. It makes people want to listen to you, makes people want to say, I want to meet him. I just want to see if he's really truly that guy in real life and have fun, have a beer with him, But
we would say for years that Bubba would make more money in radio if he got paid a nickel for every time someone would say, where's Bubba? We would be on remotes somewhere and Bubba wouldn't be there. If they just paid him a nickel for every time, but a millionaire.
Yeah. I just, I have those, same type of stories, bringing my kids down to like the PPG arena, the Players Gate, where they come through and they'll stop and sign. And my kids each have their own favorites. Right now, my oldest one's on a Brandon Tanev kick.
Not a bad one to have.
No, my youngest, her favorite since day one's been Marc-Andre Fleury, and she has all kinds of pictures together with him and, stuff like that. They have funny little pictures. They make faces and they'll have pictures together. He signs every one of them. Even when they come in from Vegas, they'll be like, oh, can we go down and see them? And, stuff like that. But my middle daughter, and a lot of people go, who's this? Derek Anglin from the first time that was the first player she ever met. And he said, hi, honey, how are you? Shook her hand and she said, can you sign this for me? And he said, yeah, let's go hey, come over here, let's take a picture. And took a picture. And from that day, every time he come to the arena, he would see her, he'd wave, he'd pull up, he always made time for her. Okay. And it was amazing. And I get chills just thinking about this. She made a collage of all the pictures of them two together. And his birthday is April 3rd. It's 4 days before my wife's. That's how I remember this. She made a collage that says, happy birthday, Derek. It was like coming close to, I think it was like the shirt off the back night they were leaving. And she handed it to him. And he's like, well, where do you want me to sign this? And she's like, no, that's a birthday present for you. And he was like, he sat back and he was like, oh, wow. He's like, this is awesome. He shows it to his wife. honey, look at this. Look at how amazing this is. Because it was from when she was little to
Sure.
now, you know. And every time he comes in from Calgary, or then he came in from Vegas, we
Right.
met him and talk. He remembers her name. He even remembers her name. That's the thing that blows me away the most. You see this kid once a year,
Right.
and but you've seen her for the last 10, and you remember her name like that. Like, she'll never forget that for the rest of her life. I won't either.
No.
But yeah, it's the little things that, some players, and then there's some players who are real jerks, and you go, come on, buddy, it's a little kid.
Right.
Just take 10 seconds to scribble something. So
I like to think that in most cases, hockey players just get it, and
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, my theory goes back to I'm thinking of high school, and the football players were always held in such high regard. They were the big men on campus. Hockey players really weren't, and if you wanted to be something as a hockey player, in most cases you were moving away at 14 years old with a billet family in Minnesota or Canada. So you were never really the most important thing. You were just chasing a dream. So I think in a lot of cases that has kept them humble, and it's all a theory. But the interactions I've had, even if they don't know who I am, because I'm just a voice in most cases to them, they're always gentlemen at worst. I mean, they're gregarious, they're fun. They'll give you time. Now, I would never try to bother them before a game, and which is really what I would see them the most. But you catch them any other time, they're just good people.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it, like with the the getting up early, the family aspect. It's always the family was always a real tight.
Yep.
And then the coach is making sure, hey, this is your extended family. These guys are your brothers,
right,
or sisters. If there's girls playing on your team, like you are tight knit. You are going to spend more time together than you do with your actual family, and I think that has a lot to do with the bond that they have. And some of these guys are like, "Oh, you really want my autograph?
Right.
Seriously?"
Right.
Like some of these guys, and it makes them feel better. It makes them feel, there's that little bit of pride that comes out. They feel special. It's like, hey, you really know who I am.
I think some of that is, goes back to what I was talking about with the radio guys. It's a little bit of imposter syndrome. You may not be, for radio people, they're in the background kind of your life. For hockey players, if you're not Sid or Gino, you may feel like you're inferior. But like you were saying, like your kids fell in love with players that weren't necessarily the biggest stars. Well, I mean, Marc-Andre Fleury, of course, but Derek Englund, who was a healthy scratch for a long period of time before he kind of made it. Like, he may have felt in their first interaction, like, you want for seriously? Yeah. But you could read that as a fan, like, that guy's standoffish or what a jerk or whatever. But I don't think that, that's in most cases not the case. It's just, like, it's almost astounding, like you were saying, like, you sure me okay
you want because I've even done that to Dan Potash. We've had a picture.
No, well, Dan you screwed up then, because Dan Potash is not worth you giving it. No, I'm just kidding. He's the best human alive.
Yeah, he is. I've seen him at Giant Eagle and run into him, and he's like, hey, he's like, how's everything going? How's the family? Genuine great guy.
Yeah.
And we need, in this day and age, we need more people like that. We need a ton of people like that, and these guys, like, they do it for the, they love the game. They love, the interaction. And I will say Potash, there's not too many better. Like at what he does, I just,
as equal to Dan, equal, maybe, if not maybe this much below or above, is Jay Caulfield. Just amazing human being.
Because I remember when him and Phil Bork would do their radio show at the casino, and just walked up and shook his hand. Monster of a man.
Big hand. It's a big hand you shook.
I mean, I got paused myself, but like it engulfed my hand, and I said, Jay, I was like, the only question I really have for her, I was like, how come you haven't got into coaching? I was like, when you do your telestrations and stuff, I just get lost in it. And I'm like, like, wow, this is amazing.
Right.
This guy is this in tune, this great, and he doesn't coach anywhere because his type of player, prototypical, like Craig Berube, like other players of that third, maybe fourth line guys who like to fight, they make some of the best coaches. And I just was always wondering. I said, hey, why haven't you gonna? It's like, it's just not in the cards right now. That was it. It's just not in the cards. I was like, no pun intended, because we're at the casino. He said, no, just not it. But there's little things. Yeah, I just always wanted to know, why hasn't he, been a coach? But yeah, I mean, we just
some of the players on his own, like in the offseason.
Well, yeah, when Mario was making that one comeback, he was quietly off. They were working out together. You always see little pictures and stuff like that. But hey, another question for you: do we have any upcoming ventures? I know you said that with Los Angeles being the way it is right now, is there anything local that would be coming up for you or anything like that?
Well, I mean, I voiced a lot of commercials for Eaton Park and for Triangle Tech and boy, who else? I do a lot of work for PNC Bank, but for a lot of their internal videos.
Okay.
But as far as stuff on TV, I mean, now that the In the Room is kind of on hiatus until the season starts up again, hopefully you're hearing me on commercials. I always tell people, if you're not hearing me, then I'm not eating. So be concerned. At least check in with me. Make sure everything's okay.
Yeah, because I've noticed a lot of your work on the commercials and stuff like that, and then like we said earlier about the the Fast and Loud and Discovery, and it's still like doing the calls on Twitter was a welcoming sight. That was
that gave me something to do. I mean, like I did all of the graphics and everything for it because I was so bored. Like I got to do something. Wow. But I will tell you that I was busier, and they didn't score a lot of goals, but I was still busier during those games from home on my couch. I sat on that couch right back there, and then worked on that desk right there, putting all of those things together. I was busier than I was in the arena because it was a different animal. I was, not just doing the goal calls, but then I had to upload the videos and put everything together. And I was like sweating. I felt like I was back into my first season, but it was fun. I was kind of glad it was over because I was like, this is not a fun way to watch a game. I'm busy.
They were definitely fun. It was great to, see. And, but
I'll give you a little insider. They didn't score that last game, but I was ready with a whole new thing. Like there was a whole new goal calls, like everything. And we never got to see it. So it's almost like it never happened.
Yep. That's painful, that you weren't able to bring it. Like it just, it's right there. I'm
soon enough.
But I mean, you figure as soon as we're done with these Stanley Cup playoffs, it's boom draft, boom expansion draft, boom free agency. Training camps are going to open, shortly after that. They'll be right back at it. And please let fans be allowed back in the buildings because this is,
as long as it's safe. I agree with you.
I would even be okay with half capacity or a third. If they have to be socially distanced, I'd be okay with that. But I do have to give a lot of props and praise to the NHL for the way they've done this so far.
I agree.
It looks like a stadium series or a Winter Classic with the way.
And I'm in complete agreement with you. Just the staging, the video screens in the background, the fact that they not only did it once, but they did it twice, once in Edmonton and once in Toronto. Yeah. And there have been, we'll knock on stuff again. There have been, they've reported 7,000 tests that they've done while in the bubble. No positives.
Yep.
I mean, I know that they have an agreement with the NHL Players Association that they wouldn't announce if anyone got it as far as, individual players. But I think they could say on a global scale, we've been successful at this so far, which is great. I don't know, I can't speak for baseball or football. I know basketball is doing a very similar thing in Disney. But man, the NHL really did it right.
Yeah, and that was one of our topics on one of our shows that we did as a group the other night was, the NFL has had the longest time to prepare for this.
For the fewest amount of games.
Yeah, and it's almost like they're dropping the ball, and it's like they don't know what they want to do or how they should do it. You have the NBA and NHL or in hub cities, there's your prototype.
Right.
You can tweak it, fix it however you want to have it, but make sure. I mean, you still got to make sure the players are safe, and
Yeah, I mean, there are people that are of a higher caliber. What do I say? A higher wage earner than I that makes those decisions.
Yeah.
So they'll figure it out. They're not dumb people on the
Yeah.
NFL.
All right. Let's see. We got anything besides? I mean,
do we have anyone watching? I don't see. I can't.
We got, as far as I know, there's 6.
Six. All of them.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody.
That's better than the 2 or 3 we had the other day.
Good.
But it's like we
look
said.
At that, look at that drawing power I have. That's 4 more.
Definitely. Hey, I'm happy with it. Usually a lot of people, after it gets uploaded and stuff like that, they'll go back and watch it.
Good.
And that's where we get like, a couple hundred views and stuff like that, which it's really cool. But yeah, I greatly appreciate all the time you've taken this evening.
Absolutely.
To talk.
Anytime.
And maybe we'll have to have you on right before the season starts. And but I would be killing myself if I didn't ask for the get on your feet and make it loud. I have to. I have to. I mean, I'm not going to jump up because I'll spill my beer.
No, if I'm doing my part, you have to do your part.
I don't want to kill the laptop either, and my dog will probably flip.
Right.
But yeah,
time to get up on your feet, make it loud, because here we go. Please welcome your Pittsburgh Penguins. Hopefully, we'll do that live. So.
Yeah, hopefully. It was great talking to you. I greatly appreciate the time. Like I said, we'll get back together right before the season starts, hopefully, and we'll have fans, and who knows what else we'll have by then. But like I said, I greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Made the Friday night fun for me.
For me too. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
We'll see you, pal.